Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart, and I happen to think that buying fragrances can be very similar to buying stocks. And the way I see it is a couple of different ways of buying stocks. The speculative way, you buy low and sell high. The problem with that is a lot of stocks get hyped. It becomes very emotional. You can make a lot of money, but you can go bankrupt too. The other way of buying stocks is just to buy blue chip. Buying quality, an established company that's been around for a long time, you're not going to lose your shirt. And I've learned over time, that's a really good way to buy fragrances. I used to be like of the buy low kind. I would buy a super hyped up fragrance, usually a clone or an inexpensive one. It would be really, really popular. And then if I didn't like it, I was stuck with it. I have changed my focus entirely since I started trading and selling my fragrances, because I just think having something of quality, there's always going to be a market for it. And I'm telling you, man, it's a lot easier to sell fragrances on things like Craigslist than you would ever imagine. And it saves an awful lot of money. So these are all blue chip stocks, blue chip fragrances today. One of the houses I had a really hard time starting with at the beginning was Hermes, because they don't follow trends or hype or anything like that. They just do their own thing. But what I learned over time is they focus on quality, from their bottles to the actual juice itself. You're always getting something that's very detailed and very high quality. So fragrance number one is from Hermes. It is Terre Eau Givree. To be fair, this fragrance was hyped an awful lot in 2022 when it first came out. A lot of hype around it, but there's been over 10,000 fragrances released since then, so the hype has died down a bit. But you do see this talked an awful lot about in the summer, and that's because it is a fantastic, very cool summer fragrance. Or if you live in a warm climate, this one works so well. So I'm breaking this one out. So it's got a frozen citrus fruit feel. They use citron here, and note that I incorrectly in the past have said was a very bright citrus note. But it's actually not. I've looked it up and I've dealt with citron a little bit more. It's actually more of a well-rounded, softer citrus note. What I'm picking up here is the Terre spice, which is actually smells a little bit like grapefruit, and it is a bright kind of citrus feel. So the Terre mixed with the citron will give you a nice bright feel, but then the mineral notes, I think, here are the key, because it gives it an icy feel. So you're getting that icy citrus feel. After 4.5 years of collecting, I think I figured out my favorite designer house has got to be the House of Prada, and I'm always trading for fragrances. If I see Prada, it will definitely get my attention. They're a really good quality house. The fragrance I'm talking about next is Prada L'Homme Intense. Now, the interesting thing about the fragrance here, I get a lot of people commenting about, please don't talk about this fragrance because it's been discontinued. Discontinuation is a really tough thing to figure out, because sometimes people say it's been discontinued, but it really hasn't. This fragrance was discontinued in North America in 21 and 22, but it was still available in Europe and in the Middle East. But because of demand, they brought it back. You can get this now, really good price, just over $90, which, you know, in the modern fragrance price range, that's an excellent price. It might be the most popular Prada fragrance, at least in the fragrance community. Now, I happen to prefer Prada L'Homme to this, because Prada L'Homme is toned down the sweetness. It's sweet. It's got a little bit of amber, but this has tonka, so they up the sweetness a bit. And then when you combine it with leather, it does have a very, to me anyway, super strong sweet smell. Look, I still love the fragrance. It's got better performance than Prada L'Homme, but definitely in the fragrance community, this one is seen as iconic. It does iris a little bit differently than Prada L'Homme, which is kind of a lighter iris. This one, when you're pairing it with tonka and leather, you're going to get a stronger, more dense iris, and that's what I get from this. Since I started looking for like blue chip fragrances, I've been targeting high-end designer and low-end niche. And I don't mean the low end in terms of quality, just in terms of price. A really good one is Acqua de Parma, and this is my favorite Acqua de Parma. This is Mandorlo di Sicilia. Now, there is a problem with the fragrance. If you'll notice, it comes in a blue bottle, and it's part of the Blue Mediterranean line. The problem with this fragrance is it really shouldn't be in that line. The Blue Mediterranean line is meant to reflect the smell of the coastal areas of Italy. It's an Italian house, right? So there's a lot of different kinds of coastal feel, but you're talking about the Mediterranean, you're talking about an ocean. So All the other fragrances in the line are very fresh, thus the blue fragrance feel. Now this one is dealing with Sicily. Yes, it is surrounded by the Mediterranean and it is an island, but Sicily is a big island. And what this fragrance focuses on is the sweetness and the spiciness of the desserts of the inland of Sicily. It doesn't really have a fresh feel at all. In fact, I think it's really good fall fragrance. Mandorlo means almond. There's green almond in this. There's also vanilla. That's not what you think of when you think of a blue fragrance. Then it's got some peach. It's got star anise, which apparently is very popular. And so, yeah, you don't think dessert again and blue fragrances. I have tested a whole bunch of these, about a dozen of them, and this one was my favorite by far. Now, I have an even better fragrance to discuss the issue of discontinuation. This is Cartier's Déclaration d'un Soir, and this fragrance was completely discontinued everywhere. And then they brought it back. You know, they can do that. If there's money to be made, and a lot of these houses, they pay attention to the fragrance community. If something's popular, and if they're going to make money, they're going to bring stuff back. If they can do it, and they did it in this case. And I mean, this really is an iconic fragrance in the community. It was gone for like 3 or 4 years. I think Cartier is underappreciated as a house. The perfumer there is Mathilde Laurent, and she's a risk taker. She really took a risk in 2012 when she made this, because this is a predominantly rose fragrance. And even niche houses back in 2012, you know, that was not the idea of a man's fragrance like men in rose, but she targeted men specifically with a rose-heavy fragrance, but she did the right thing. She paired it with black pepper and cardamom. So very spicy. And rose is a thick, dense note, so you want to put it with something lighter, something spicy and fresh. Works so well. One of the best openings I've ever tried. You get this just over $70 at the discounters. And the great thing about this one is it doesn't have a cap. So if you see it for sale as a tester, grab it, because you're going to get full presentation as far as the bottle is concerned, because there's no cap. The only thing, the difference is you're going to get like a white box, a generic box instead of one. But yeah, blue chip. The next fragrance is not a blind buy, and it's a perfect example of why it's important to buy blue chip. Because if you're buying a fragrance, and we all do that on occasion, we buy something that looks good, maybe we haven't tried it, you know, naughty, but then we get it, it's not very good. If it's inexpensive, it's a clone, if it's not high quality, you're stuck with it. But with Hermes, again, yeah, you can get rid of it, no problem. This is age 24 Vives, not a blind buy, because this fragrance is very green. And that's a tough sell in today's age when everything is so sweet. But this is fantastic. And I mean that in really warm weather, because if you want to be attractive when it's super hot out, and July and August are coming up here, if you want to be attractive, you want to be as fresh as possible. Between this and Neo, the two freshest fragrances that I've ever put on. And so, yeah, if you live in a warm climate or you want to buy something really fresh for summer, this would be great. So it opens with herbal notes. That is what it's supposed to be. It's not herbal notes. They're lying there. It's green notes. This is very green. I don't get any herbal feel at all. The mid is pear. You get a hint of pear, a little bit of fruit. You won't get it at the beginning, but you'll eventually go, oh yeah, I can see the fruitiness. And in the base is a new aroma chemical, relatively new, called Fizz Cool, which was specifically designed, as you can tell by the name, to come off as very, very cool without, oddly enough, smelling minty. And so, I don't know, it just manages to do it, and it feels extremely cool. Now, it is a green fragrance, so it's very fresh, so you're going to get, you know, 4 or 5 hours. It's not going to blow you out of the water, but the cooling aspect of this is phenomenal, and this is something, along with Eau Givree off the top, that I will be breaking out in a couple of weeks, just to go into heavy rotation in the summer, because I like to smell fresh in the summer. The next fragrance is an example of buying blue chip and being able to unload very easily a fragrance that maybe you don't like and you blind bought or you don't like anymore. This is Givenchy Gentleman. This was released in 1974, but this is an original bottle. What I did, I really liked this so much, was I purchased the new bottle, Givenchy Gentleman 74. Because this one is 40 years old or more, the opening of it had gotten absolutely spectacular. The civet note, the animalic civet note had really died down. The molecules in the juice had kind of gone away. And so the opening was really bright and almost perfumey, almost feminine to a certain extent, but then it dried down into a beautiful patchouli. But I love the open. And so I got the 74 version, and so that juice has been updated. It's not, the civet is right there in your face, and I didn't really like it. I got rid of it. No problem. I mean, I had this as well. Now, I will say the 1974 version has the exact same dry down as this. Remarkably similar. Beautiful combination of patchouli, leather, and oak moss with a heavy emphasis on patchouli. This thing and the 1974 version is a patchouli balm. It's very, very nice patchouli fragrance with really good performance. And Givenchy is one of those houses where, yeah, people are always looking for bottles. The best fragrance that I tried in 2024 was, again, an example of a low-end niche house, at least in terms of price, but it had solid quality, because I don't want to pay like $300 for a niche fragrance, but I don't mind paying $100, $120. And it's from Michael Malul and Gents. It's an excellent house. And this is West Loop. And this is exactly what I would have done if I was Dior and I wanted to transition away from floral fragrances. Instead of like completely leaving iris, just getting rid of it completely. And they seem to have done that with the new Dior Homme Parfum. I mean, it's just the DHI that has any real floral element left. But with this, they kept the floral element. Different kind of flower. It's not iris. It's a combination of almond blossom and vanilla orchid. So a little bit of sweetness from the vanilla orchid. They've added tonka, so it's sweet and floral. And then they added a ton of cinnamon here as well. And so you got spiciness, you get the floral element, that creamy floral element. Not iris exactly, but still kind of definitely that feel. And then you've got the sweetness, the spiciness, and the floral. Just works perfectly. Really solid performance. I'm surprised I haven't heard more about this. I think this one is fantastic. Now, I have been really hard on inexpensive fragrances to this point, but it depends on the type of inexpensive fragrance. The more experience you have, the more you realize, okay, that brand or that particular line is inexpensive, but it's very high quality, and that is definitely the case with the Encre Noire line from Lalique, and specifically, this is Encre Noire Sport. Now, this is a heavy vetiver fragrance that I had a hard time figuring out initially. It took me a couple of years, to be honest, to really appreciate just vetiver in general, but this one in particular. This, aside from having a lot of vetiver, which is very minimal and not sweet, this also has a lot of freshness that can come off as pickle juicy. So it's got cypress in the mid. The entire line has cypress. But the grapefruit off the top makes it like very, very fresh. And I can kind of see how people can get pickle juice from it. But if you learn how to what to wear it with, and in this case, the way I dress, suit, shirt and tie, it's a good combination, very minimalist. So anyway, since I started trading fragrances, since I started selling the occasional fragrance and buying things off of things like Craigslist and it's called Kijiji in Canada, I definitely have changed completely the way I buy fragrances. I'm really reluctant to buy anything with hype around it, like at all. I got a lot of fragrances in my collection that I don't talk about much, and they just take up a lot of space. So yeah, blind blue chip, I think, is the way to go. Anyway, thanks for watching.